Good morning, guys. Good afternoon. How are you doing? So I'm starting with 3 minute delay here. Sorry for that. Always finding myself having to run around, just make sure that everything is ready, right? So first of all, happy Sunday, right? So we're gonna be back into chemistry lesson because I'm gonna talk to you about hydrogen. I'm sure you heard a lot about it, right? And it's probably going to ask yourself, so what does that have to do with the decarbonization that we're going to talk about? And this is what I want to discuss. But first. So it's also fair to say that this is the last day of the African Cup of Football. I think African Football Cup of Nations. I don't really know what it is. Anyway, whatever it is. So the final is today, and Senegal is going to be meeting Egypt. So first of all, I just want to say congratulations for both teams for reaching the stage, but also I'm wishing that the best will actually win the competition. Anyway, whoever wins is going to be the best, isn't it? That's the rule of the game. And as for Cameroon, so the home nation organized the tournament. So the third best nation. So that's great. So we were expecting for something better, but hey, we also have to respect the rules of football. So thanks for that. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tony Teo, and it's a pleasure for me to be talking to you. And welcome to the Renewable Energy in Africa, the Renewables in Africa channel. So what is that we do in our channel? Very simple. We make sure that we demystify the renewable energy sector for you so that if you are an investor looking to invest into the sector, or you're a professional looking to get into the sector, or simply a business, or even somebody from the society who wants to know more about, this is what this channel is all about. And what you can do to contribute, very simple. I want you just to click and to subscribe into this channel wherever you join us from, because some people will be joining us from LinkedIn, other will be joining from Facebook, other will be joining from YouTube or Twitter, right? Just make sure that you follow us, subscribe us, and you leave us your message, because we're doing that to make sure that you have the information that you are looking for, isn't it? Excellent. Now, let me come back to the topic. I'm sure you've heard a lot about decarbonization, right? So now one of the big topic is how, especially for the world, how do we make sure that we're going to get to carbon neutral by 2050? And for that, we need to phase out the fossil fuel, right? That's one of the big question. And when it comes to emerging markets, especially Africa, first of all, it's about providing full access, energy access to every citizen. But also that energy, it has to be clean. So how do you make it happen? How do you make it happen so that it is sustainable? This is the question I want to respond to you. And I don't know, you would have heard about the fact that now there was a sudden big interest into hydrogen. This is nothing new, actually. Hydrogen has been around for a little while, but the question is, how come now we're talking about that, right? And why is it suddenly an interest into hydrogen? That's exactly what I want to I want to talk about. I want to explain to you what is the background story that lead us to here. And what I want to do, because obviously if I have to cover this topic, probably going to take me, I don't know, 2 3 potentially 4 videos to properly sort of lay out to you what are the different aspects of the conversation. But today, only for today, we only going to focus on the background story. Why are we finding ourselves here? Is that all okay? Excellent. And by the way, let me tell you one thing. If you have any questions that you want to send to me, feel free just to drop it in the chat. I have a look at that, and I can make sure that while I'm presenting to you the background story, I can also address your question. Is it okay? I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. Okay, let me share my story so that you then understand what we're talking about here. So hopefully that will come in a minute. Yes, that's it. Okay, I just want to share the PowerPoint. Let's see. I believe it is one. Up. Yep. Is it the one? Yes. I believe that's the one. Up. Let me see. Oh, yeah. That's fine. I think you can see. I believe you can see. Let me just check. Go back. Just want to check that you guys can see. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble. I don't want to be in trouble. Okay. You clearly can see what I wanted to show you. I want to show you. So that means we are all good to go. Okay. Excellent. So the reason we are here, let's just first of all look at what are we talking about here. So if we're looking at, obviously, the topic, it's global topic, so that's actually for the whole world, right? So there was some fantastic analysis that was done by an organization called REN 21, that's Renewable 21st Century, right? So how can we decarbonize and make sure that we can get a bigger share of renewables? So they publish various sorts of reports on a day, on a yearly basis, and that's one that came out, I believe, last year. And what can we see? What we can see here, it's if you look at the figures in terms of the consumption of energy between 2009 and 2019, that's a decade. Yeah, first of all, you can see that there has been an increase, right? So that's exajoule here. So exajoules. So we had about 320 all the way to something like 380, right? You can see from the graph there has been an increase. But what is more important is actually the share of fossil fuel on what this final consumption is based off. So what we're simply saying that is 2009, there was 80% of it was coming from fossil fuel, and only 8% was actually what we call modern renewables, right? Modern renewables, that's everything linked to solar, wind, but also biomass and biomass and waste to energy. This kind of technology. So if you compare what we had in 2009 to what we have in 2019, as you can see, so 80% fossil fuel is still there, which is quite impressive. It's almost like we've not made any progress. And in fact, the shares of modern renewables, have gone from 8.7% all the way to 11.2%. Not a lot, right? It's still quite significant. So clearly, if we're talking about decarbonizing, how can we tap into the 80%? Because that has barely moved over the last decade or so. And yeah, so obviously the source of that is coming from REN 21, as I mentioned. And if we drill down a little bit, we compare the increase, because I told you that we went from 320 to 381, more precisely here, right? So what is that increase made of, right? Again, when you look at the increase, yeah, 75% still came from fossil fuel. If you look at that additional energy that we've consumed, between the 2 decades, and only 25% was modern renewables. So clearly, there is a big job one has to be asking yourself. So if we're saying that we're going to be carbon neutral by the middle of the century, so how can we make it happen? But clearly, there's a problem here, because it looks like any time we're increasing the amount of energy that we're consuming, we're simply just pumping more fossil fuel. That is a problem. Let me just carry on. Yeah. So, and as you talked about decarbonizing, sometimes that's a big word, right? So it's sort of a generic word, right? It sort of include everything. But now the question is, what sector are we talking about then do we need to decarbonize in order for us to make sure that we can reach the carbon neutral and minimize the amount of CO2 that we're rejecting into the atmosphere? That's the kind of question I guess you want to know. Well, let me tell you. So there are essentially 4 sectors we want to decarbonize, and that's actually where all your consumption of CO2 is coming from. So we have buildings. So talk about all the buildings, the housing stock that we have, all the commercial properties that we have. This is what we're talking about here. That's one of the sectors that we need to definitely decarbonize. How do we provide energy into this sector? And then we have industries, isn't it? Right. So industries that I'm sure you're quite familiar with. So how can we make sure that whatever we provide to industry in terms of power, in terms of heat to industry, and also the transport that goes into there, how do we make sure that that source of energy, those sources of energy, It's less fossil fuel, much more clean energy. How do we make it happen? Those are two sectors already. There are another two that are missing. So transport, that's another big one. Another big one, right? Sometimes we don't think about that. And when I think about transport, yes, the biggest share will be coming from the cars and the vehicles, but don't just think about that. Think about also the shipping industry, but also the airline industries. So those all part of transport, and at the moment still consuming a significant amount of fossil fuel. That's why, for example, I've been talking about in one of my live, I was talking about the EVs. Yeah, the fact that still a good proportion of those vehicles, let's say the large majority of vehicles, are still powered by fossil fuel. And if it's one of the components that we need to decarbonize, clearly we need to do something about it. That's why you have the electric vehicle, right? But also another option is what we're going to talk about. That's why you're going to hear a lot more about hydrogen nowadays, right? So that's one of the sectors. And the last sector also that we need to decarbonize is the power sector. Yeah, just as simple. And I guess that you are very familiar with. So and it's good for me to be showing that like that, right? I know in general terms, most of the time when we're talking about decarbonizing, so reducing the amount of CO2, many people only have in mind the power sector, the electricity. Yeah, clearly it's one of the the key component, one of the key sector. But I just wanted to make sure that you also you also aware of the fact that it's not the only one. We also have other sectors. Yeah, as I mentioned here, buildings. Think about that. Your commercial property, your housing stock, the industry, all the industry that are there. Because industry don't only work on electricity. You also have other processes, right? One of it is heating as well. That's another big part. Heating, cooling. How do you do that? Yeah, very important. And transport. Those are sectors that needs to be decarbonized. And if you think about the slide that I showed to you before that here, where I would say that we have had an increase of power, and the big proportion of that increase was still coming from fossil fuel. And if you compare even before that, you could see, right, between 2009 and 2019, yeah, the proportion of fossil fuel barely has changed. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show you so that you clearly understand that. So we really need something to dig deep and sort of allowed us to to eat into that shares into fossil fuel, right? So that's what it's all about. Drill down even more, right? So the thing is, for example, for buildings and and industry, let's group them into in one big group that we call thermal, in terms of the kind of what are the big consumer of energy. We have everything that's thermal processes. You can think about, for example, your heatings, yeah, that you have either for industrial processes, but also your houses that you need to heat, they need to heat up, right? That heating, transport, and power and heating. What do we see? So clearly, obviously, if you look at the share of renewables energy, right? So thermal power, can only count on 10% of renewable energy as of now, right? Just to get what they need, yeah, in terms of thermal power, thermal needs, and then also a bit of non-renewable electricity. But 10% for renewable, that's insignificant. That's very small. And transport is even lower. It's only 3%. 3% actually come from renewables energy, right? The large proportion, still come from fossil fuel. And if you look at the power, then you have, okay, power, we've made a lot more progress, yeah, but still 27%. So this is what we're talking about. So that's what basically the industry has been sort of looking at. What is the right way to be tapping into that fossil fuel? What is the fuel that can replace that? Because at the moment, what is that we're using for fossil fuel, right? So we're using everything that you need: oil, we need gas, we also using coal. Now, obviously, coal, we're phasing out coal more and more, but you still have the other two that I mentioned. So how can you do it? So people have been looking at a replacement a replacement fuel for that. And renewables, especially modern renewables, the main challenge around that at the moment is because of the flexibility, but more so the intermittency. So it sort of brings some sort of issues at the moment, meaning that it's still challenging, not impossible, it's still challenging to rely on that as a what we call a base load power, right? So base load power, what is that? It's simply a source of energy we know we can rely on, day in, day out, 24/7, right? We know that because at the moment the problem with solar and wind is the fact that the wind doesn't blow necessarily all the time, solar doesn't, the sun is not out all the time, right? So what happened when you have peak demand and you have no wind, no sun, right? So that's the kind of thing. So that's what base load at the moment, it's still a little bit of challenge, but there's progress that's been made there. But that's one of the potential big breakthrough. People realize that, oh, we could be using hydrogen, and hydrogen actually is not a new source per se. By the way, hydrogen has been around for ages, right? Scary has been around for ages, for as long as life has existed on planet Earth. So it's the most abundant element in the nature. So you go to the where in the planet Sun you have hydrogen. We have also have hydrogen. The difference is here, it's difficult to find hydrogen, let's say, as a single component. Is always connected, right, with something else. Yeah, it could be connected. Most of the time, it's connected with water. That's how you find hydrogen. So that means for you to extract hydrogen, right? To extract, you need a process. You need to some operation to separate hydrogen from the other element, and that's where actually the conversation is really revolving into. And by the way, I'm just going a little bit fast into that, but don't worry because I'm going to come back into that. In future videos and explain a little bit more. But in a nutshell, to extract the hydrogen out, you need some operation to be able to extract that, because at the moment it's not easy to get it by himself. And just to make it short, you have two type of processes that will do it. You have what we call steam reforming. Essentially, you actually mixing hydrogen with methane, right? And there's a process that's happening. Steam is coming out, and from that steam, you get hydrogen. Or you have electrolysis. That's another method that you could use, using electricity again to create a chemical reaction, and the output is the hydrogen. But for those two actually processes, what you get out is actually H2. It's not even hydrogen on its own. So they may still want to separate that, right? Just to get the hydrogen on its own. And that's going to be obviously the the subject of other videos. So I'm simply sharing that to say, let me just stop the video here so that I can see you. Yeah. So I was simply showing that to you to say that this is where the whole story is coming from. Hopefully you'll be able to understand from the fact that initially, like I say, there's still a big share of fossil fuel. If you look at the total energy consumption, right, 80%, that's what you need to keep in mind. And if we're talking about decarbonizing, there are four sectors you want to be decarbonizing. You have the building that you want to be decarbonizing, but you also have your industries that you want to be decarbonizing. You have the transport sector you want to be decarbonizing, and you have obviously the power, right? And if you look at each of those sectors, and I show that to you, each of them significantly dependent on still fossil fuel. So how do you make it happen? Clearly, we want to have more renewables. But if we're talking about decarbonizing by 2050, which is the middle of the century, whoa, there's a big sun here. I'm not sure you can see me. Can you see me? Great. So if you still want to decarbonize by the middle of the century, right? So clearly, it may not renewable may not make enough quick progress for us to reach our to do it by this day. That's what they've been looking at. Let's say replacing fuel that can do that, and that's where hydrogen is coming from. Because first of all, hydrogen is already used, and I'm going to talk about that in future videos. It's already used in multiple industries, right? But the question is, how can we make sure that we can produce this hydrogen from clean sources, just to make sure that we have a clean energy process here? Because when you process it, either a steam reforming process or the electrolysis, what come out as an output is simply water, which is obviously it's not a pollutant. So that's what the idea is all about. Hopefully now you understand everything about hydrogen, and then you'll be able to explain to people how you could how you can make it happen. So a question: biomass is classified as a green according to EU taxonomy. Yes, I agree with you. Biomass is classified as green, but I see where you're going to with your question, because they how can I say that? There's a little bit of a controversy around biomass, because some processes may not be as green as we could think about if you look at the full carbon footprint. I agree with you. So, well, listen, like I say, so and that's what I also want to say to people. Nobody has ever said that the clean energy it's is an industry where everything is clear. Clearly, it's not the case. Somebody saying that you, I think that person is really lying. Whatever industry that you are taking, whatever solution that you bring in, it's going to have some challenges. But yes, biomass is a green source, but it depends how you process, how you create that biomass. Obviously, you don't want to obviously accelerate deforestation, which clearly is also it's not also not serving the cause. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. But decarbonizing for me is a key thing to be going forward with. And whether you're talking about the society, whether you're talking about government, but also businesses, this is something that you want to do. And even talking about businesses, let me just share something with you. Sorry, I think I have some glare coming from the sun. It's big today. Yeah. So talking about some businesses. I know I've been talking to many businesses, and many of them are interested in becoming green, or at least embarking into the sustainable journey, but they don't know always what to do, what is the right step for them to do, and they have key questions that they want to address. Obviously, I can't do that right here because it's just gonna basically we're gonna be on for quite a long time, and this is meant to be just a short video. However, the good thing that I can tell you, right? So we are actually going to be running. Um, we're going to be running very shortly. Uh, an event is a seminar that's going to be called Sustainable Business Seminar. It's coming on the 23rd of February, and I strongly advise you to sign up. I've pasted the link here, so there's a short link and also the long link. So any of those two will work. So sign up for that. If you're a business, you want to find out more about how you can, what you can do to become sustainable, and be more than happy to go into details. So, okay, so I have Michael. I think Ikweme Michael say that biogenic waste. Okay, yeah, I don't know whether you have a question around that about biogenic waste, but if you have, let us know. But I'm just gonna close the session right now, because usually it's about 15-20 minutes, yeah, or so. But what I can do, drop me your question so in the comment box, so whatever platform you're joining from, and we're more than happy to address that. But I have to say thank you very much for attending. So we always love it. I appreciate it. So make sure that you share that video with people around you. And as I say, I'm going to be talking a lot more about this topic, hydrogen, if it's something that's of interest to you. So before then, send me the question, and I'd love to have it. But make sure, if you haven't done it, so that you subscribe, right? Because we're doing it just to pass on information for you, right? So that you get informed. So that's all I had to say for today. So it's a beautiful Sunday. So we still have a beautiful final to watch tonight, Senegal versus Egypt. But before then, I want to wish you a happy Sunday. And like I usually say, may the sun be with you. So sign up and connect with us. So have a great time. Take care, guys. Bye bye.